Nicholas Devereux had everything most men only dreamed of. A multi-million-dollar tech company, cars worth more than houses, and a skyline view from his penthouse that reminded him daily of his success. He was powerful, admired, envied, but profoundly empty. His days were filled with meetings, stock updates, and boardroom tension. No one questioned him, and no one really knew him. Until a new face appeared at the company cafe, a quiet girl with large eyes and no interest in his world. She never spoke unless spoken to, and even then, her voice was barely louder than the sound of steaming milk. She wore plain clothes, never makeup, always with a notebook tucked under her arm. Her name tag read Elara, and she never looked up. When she served him coffee, most executives ignored her entirely, but Nicholas noticed her instantly. At first it was curiosity, why someone so quiet seemed so calm in a world that chewed people alive, but soon, it became more than that. He began timing his visits to see her. She never smiled, never tried to impress, never seemed to care who he was, and that was what fascinated him most. He asked around, but no one knew much. She keeps to herself. The HR manager said, lives somewhere far from downtown, works double shifts, never complains. Nicholas started paying attention to the small things, the calluses on her hands, the slight limp in her left leg, the way she flinched whenever someone raised their voice nearby. Something had built walls around her and he couldn't stop wondering what was on the other side. He told himself it was harmless interest, but he knew he was lying. One evening, after she clocked out, Nicholas made a decision. He followed her not out of malice, but because he needed to understand. She walked for nearly 20 minutes, avoiding public transport, eyes down, moving like someone used to disappearing. He stayed at a distance, cautious, heart racing. She eventually turned into a narrow alley that led to a crumbling apartment complex. There were cracks in the walls, broken windows covered with cardboard, and graffiti that told stories no one wanted to hear. And yet, she entered it like it was home. He waited outside for nearly an hour, watched lights flicker in her window, heard music's soft piano notes coming from somewhere above. He imagined a girl like her in a place like that, reading by a candle or drawing in that little notebook she always carried. Something didn't add up. The girl who moved like a ghost didn't belong in a place that looked like it had been forgotten by the world. And for reasons he couldn't explain, he returned the next night. What he saw that second night shattered the narrative he had built in his head. Elara came out dressed in old clothes, carrying a bag filled with canned goods and small toys. She didn't walk to a store. She walked to an abandoned lot. And one by one, small children emerged from the shadows, orphans, runaways, kids too broken for the system. She handed them food, bandaged a scraped knee, and read a story by the light of her phone. Nicholas stood still in the dark, unable to breathe. This quiet girl was saving lives while the city ignored them. He watched her like that for several nights. Always the same. She worked at the cafe, walked home, and disappeared into the night with her bag of hope. He learned her route by heart, but never let himself get closer. Something about what she was doing felt sacred, something he wasn't worthy of stepping into. But one night, it rained hard, and a boy collapsed in the street. She rushed to him, but the boy was bleeding badly. Nicholas ran from the shadows and lifted the child into his arms. Elara froze when she saw him. You followed me, she whispered. Her voice wasn't angry, it was tired, scared. He nodded, soaked, holding the unconscious boy. I did, I'm sorry, but I can help. She hesitated, then nodded, and they rushed to a nearby clinic, one that Nicholas funded but never visited. The boy survived. Elara disappeared without saying another word. But Nicholas didn't return to his penthouse that night. He stood outside her building until dawn. The next morning she confronted him. Her eyes were sharp, defenses high. Why, are you watching me? She asked. Because I wanted to know who you were, he said simply, and now that I do, I want to help. Elara laughed bitterly. Rich men don't help girls like me. They save them for a week, then forget their names. He didn't argue. Instead, he handed her a clean box of supplies. Then let me prove I'm not like the others, one day at a time. She didn't trust him, but she didn't turn him away, and that was enough. Nicholas returned every night, helping her carry food, watching the children warm up to him. He learned their names, their favorite songs, their fears. Elara still kept her distance emotionally, but her eyes softened. Slowly, the man who had everything began to lose interest in everything that wants to find him, because for the first time, he wasn't admired, he was needed. As the nights passed, Nicholas became more involved in Elara's world. He wasn't just a silent observer anymore. He carried boxers, cleaned wounds, and even played with the children when she wasn't looking. Yet Elara remained guarded, rarely spoke about her past, and whenever Nicholas tried to ask, she changed the subject or left abruptly. He understood this silence was a wall built from pain and fear, but every small smile she gave made him want to break through it more. Slowly, he saw the girl beneath the armor, a survivor who gave all she had to those who had less. One evening, Elara invited him inside her cramped apartment. It was nothing like his sleek penthouse, old furniture, peeling paint, and stacks of worn books. She offered him tea and sat quietly, her eyes watching him carefully. Nicholas realized how different their lives were, yet how they shared the same desire, to protect what mattered most. She told him, in fragments, about the family she lost and the promises she made. His heart ached for her, but he kept his feelings hidden, knowing she wasn't ready. Meanwhile, word started to spread in the neighborhood about the mysterious millionaire helping the children. Some saw him as a savior. Others whispered that he was meddling where he didn't belong. Elara feared the attention could destroy everything she built in secrecy. She begged Nicholas to keep his distance, but he refused. "I'm not here to change you," he said. "I'm here to stand by you." Her silence said more than words. Nicholas's world began to crumble in other ways. Board meetings lost their meaning, deals became distractions. He realized he was living a life full of things, but empty of purpose. Elara's quiet strength made his accomplishments seem hollow. At night, he dreamed of a life where money wasn't the measure of success, but love and compassion were. For the first time, he questioned what he truly wanted. One rainy night, a crisis hit the local shelter that housed several of Elara's kids suddenly shut down due to funding cuts. The children had nowhere to go, and panic spread through the group. Nicholas sprang into action, using his connections to secure a temporary facility. He even offered to fund a permanent shelter for the children, but Elara hesitated. She was afraid of losing control or inviting judgment. Nicholas promised her discretion and support. "We'll do this together," he said, for the first time. She nodded in agreement. Over the next weeks, they worked side by side, planning, organizing, building. The shelter opened quietly, with no fanfare, but with hearts full of hope. Elara's shy smiles grew brighter. Nicholas learned the names of every child, and they all knew him as the gentleman who never asked for applause. It was a new beginning for all of them. For Nicholas, it was a rebirth. For Elara, a chance to trust someone without fear. Yet, the past was never far behind. One evening, Elara received a threatening letter, warning her to stop helping the children. Fear crept back into her eyes. Nicholas stood by her, promising protection. He hired security and made sure the shelter was safe. But more than that, he vowed to fight for her and the kids, no matter the cost. Elara finally began to see that she wasn't alone anymore. Slowly, walls broke down. One quiet evening, while they sat watching the children play, Nicholas reached out and gently took Elara's hand. She didn't pull away. Instead, she squeezed his fingers tightly. "I never thought I'd let anyone in," she whispered. "You're different," he smiled softly. "Because I love you." Her breath caught. It was the first time she admitted her feelings, not just to him, but to herself. They began dating in secret, sharing stolen moments and quiet conversations. The world outside remained unaware of the billionaire and the shy girl who had found love amid broken lives. Nicholas learned to listen, to be patient, and to cherish the simple joys Elara showed him. And she learned to believe in love again, not as a fantasy, but as a quiet, steady flame. But love, like life, is never without challenges. When a scandal broke out, accusing Nicholas of using the shelter for publicity, Elara feared losing everything. The media swarmed their lives, and the children's safety was threatened. Together, they faced the storm, proving the truth through unwavering dedication and genuine care. The fight was exhausting, but it only made their bond stronger. By the end of it, Nicholas knew he had found not just love, but a purpose that no amount of money could buy. The media storm slowly faded, but the scars remained. Elara withdrew into herself, afraid the attention would return. Nicholas stayed close, never letting her face it alone. They spent long nights talking about fears, dreams, and healing. She confessed how hard it was to believe she deserved happiness. He promised to remind her every day. Their bond deepened beyond love into trust and friendship. And in that fragile space, they found hope. Nicholas began stepping away from his company's daily operations. The relentless pressure no longer appealed to him. He found peace in the shelter's laughter, in the children's gratitude, and in Elara's quiet strength. His empire wasn't buildings or money anymore, it was the lives he touched. He surprised many by announcing a sabbatical to focus on philanthropic work. Some scoffed at the idea of a billionaire walking away, but Nicholas knew he was finally following his heart. Elara blossomed in this new chapter. She led the shelter with confidence and grace. The children thrived in the safe space they created together, and she learned to open her heart beyond fear. The quiet girl who once kept to herself now inspired others with her courage. She and Nicholas became a beacon of hope for those who felt invisible. Their love story was not about riches, it was about healing and redemption. One afternoon in a sunlit garden beside the shelter, Nicholas knelt on one knee. He pulled out a simple ring of promise, not of wealth, but of partnership. Elara's eyes filled with tears. She said yes, not just to him, but to a future she never thought possible. Their families celebrated quietly, knowing this was a love built on strength, respect, and quiet resilience. As the years passed, the shelter expanded, helping more children and families in need. Nicholas and Elara remained deeply involved, their love growing with every challenge. They never returned to their old lives, the glittering parties, the boardroom battles. Instead, they found joy in small moments, baking with kids, painting murals, quiet evenings under stars. Their empire was now one of compassion. They faced hardships like everyone else, financial pressures, health scares, moments of doubt, but they faced them together, hand in hand. Their love became a foundation that weathered every storm. They learned that true strength was vulnerability, that money could buy many things, but not peace or love. Those had to be earned. Nicholas often reflected on the night he followed Elara home. It had changed everything, not just his life, but who he was at his core. He had traded a lonely empire for a life filled with meaning, and Elara, once a quiet girl, had found a voice and a partner who valued her deeply. Together, they created a family bound not by blood, but by heart. The shelter became a symbol and the community a place where broken lives were mended. Local leaders took notice, and new partnerships flourished. But Nicholas and Elara never sought fame or recognition. Their work was its own reward. They celebrated victories quietly, with hugs and laughter, and when challenges arose, they faced them as one. On a cool spring evening, surrounded by children and friends, Nicholas and Elara hosted a small celebration for the shelter's 10th anniversary. The place buzzed with joy and hope. Elara stood at the center, radiant and strong. Nicholas whispered to her, "You saved me, you know?" She smiled, squeezing his hand. "We saved each other." As the sun set over the city skyline, they walked home together, fingers intertwined. Their journey had begun with a quiet walk home, but it had led to a lifetime of love, healing, and purpose. Neither needed anything money could buy. They had everything they truly wanted: each other.